Part 2. Understanding Power and Consent. In this section, we're going to dive into themes of navigating identity, power, bodies, and sex. As our understanding of identity grows and changes over time, it's important to recognize how systems of power impact our interpersonal relationships. Even though we may know we have agency and ownership over our own bodies, depending on your experiences and intersecting identities, especially for different marginalized folks, it's sometimes harder to feel like you have access to that power to say yes or no because of often unnamed power dynamics in relationships. Because of the ways in which systems of oppression impact each of us differently, it's hard for people to learn where and how to access their own power and agency. This can be related to any access of privilege and oppression. It's important for us to interrogate what this means, to learn and understand what patterns exist in your current relationships, as well as understanding how you're seen in the world in order to be able to speak up for yourself in different moments. This is especially important for any aspect where you're giving permission to either your body or yourself, whether it's about sexual consent or even simply sharing space with others. Additionally, if you have more privilege and your identities give you more social power over, it's your responsibility to create space and listen in order for your partner to feel fully active in conversations around power and consent. Asking questions. It's important to create space for healthy conversations and discuss power dynamics and other factors that might be influencing how we give or receive consent in any type of relationship. Asking yourself and your potential partners beforehand about some of these questions below can be a helpful starting point for communicating around consent. These are just a few ways that can help you think about and communicate around your own experiences and assumptions when navigating power dynamics in any kind of relationship. Please feel free to pause here and take notes on any questions you find helpful. It's important to understand that we each have patterns and expectations around sex and consent. Recognizing our own patterns and assumptions often depends on how people grow up, how we're socialized, and what we are taught about our bodies, sex, and consent. Often folks, especially those of marginalized identities, can internalize certain patterns of oppression and are raised to believe that it is our job to do what others want or need. In these cases, it's often hard to unlearn this pattern and remember that we still have agency and the right to determine our own needs and desires. It's important to remember that building tools around consent and communication for healthy relationships is often a process of unlearning and relearning that we are worthy of being afforded the respect of consent. Everyone, including you, are worthy of respect. Sometimes this process of recognizing our patterns and experiences around communication and consent can be difficult. This can be especially hard and bring up difficult memories and feelings for those who identify as having experienced abuse or sexual trauma in their past, and potentially for all of us because we do not live in a culture of consent. Many of us have had negative experiences of boundary violations that we don't think of in concrete terms, but most of us have received conditioning through this culture that can make it difficult to speak openly about sex and consent. Every conversation about consent is an opportunity to work through ideas and constructs of how we understand and communicate around these issues. Understanding what safety looks like to you. Many people think of safety as a feeling of being safe. While this is one way to judge safety, it's not always reliable. You can be in a safe situation and still feel unsafe, or if you're a trauma survivor, you may be in an unsafe situation and feel just fine. What feeling safe is important, it does not necessarily give you reliable ground on which to determine if you are unsafe or safe enough to proceed. So what does tell you that you're safe? Here are some questions to help check in with yourself about safety. Whether it's understanding how you feel in your body or in the physical environment around you, recognizing if the people you're with are considering your needs as just as important to their own, to recognizing your own power in the situation and see if you feel like you're making your own choices, are just a few ways to check in and think about how to better assess whether or not you are safe in different contexts where you might be negotiating access to your body. Disability Guide to Talking About Sex and Consent. The disability rights movement from its inception has always been in a way about consent. In its focus on affirming the self-determination and rights of people with disabilities, recognizing that folks with disabilities have a right to control their own lives. Below are some helpful tips and reminders for having conversations around disability and consent. You are always entitled to explore your desires and fantasies. You know your body best. Don't worry about conversations being a mood killer. Remember, you can always be an active participant, even if your abilities are limited or different. Think about what it looks like for you to feel like an active participant. Be clear about what words you do and don't like to describe your body parts and/or disability mobility aids, and when ready to engage with someone sexually, you can strategize with how to make it work best. Practice these conversations with yourself or a friend, and remember that these conversations can take whatever format feels best for you. As we close out today, here's just a few more helpful tips for navigating consent and safe sex. Always negotiate safe sex first. Know your limits and boundaries. Communicate them clearly and don't compromise. Ask what consent looks like for them and name what works for you. If you can't have a positive experience without clear, consistent verbal consent, maybe you shouldn't be hopping into bed with someone who isn't willing to try it. So ask up front about how somebody prefers to communicate their desires, preferences, and boundaries, and be clear enough on your own to say no thanks if they don't line up. Finally, remember, you can always be an active bystander if you see people not respecting and not consenting. We do this with the 3 Ds. Delegate, tell someone else what you see or hear happening. Distract by trying to change the subject or de-escalate, and direct if you feel safe to do so. Tell the people involved that you know what's happening and it's not okay. For more information, check out these resources to continue learning about what consent means to you.